to Cavan TV's News and Views, Ireland's first live web TV current affairs programme, with over 1.8 million viewers in 212 countries, and we are on a web TV site near you. My name is Anya Duffy, and we bring the programme to you weekly on Fridays 7 to 8 Greenwich Mean Time. Each week we take a look at what is going on in the county and invite guests to chat live in the studio. If you have an event you want us to know about or an issue you'd like discussed, please email us at drumlinmedia@gmail.com. So, anything interesting going on? Well, please do let us know. This week, what happened? Well, on the national scene for Tradheads, it was all roads lead to Sligo. Sligo, the county, the All-Ireland Flow was there last week in Sligo, and indeed it will be there next year. The good weather brought out large crowds and it was very successful, and if you remember last week on Country Town with Quinn, Bill Lloyd and friends popped into the studio and we had an impromptu session. He played a few of his bluegrass songs and even the studio guests joined in. Bill just happened to be passing en route to the Fleadh. So if you haven't seen that programme, please do long and see Country Town with Quinn from last week. Okay, last Tuesday night saw the crowning of this year's Rose of Tralee, and she was Maria Walsh, all the way from Philadelphia, and she's the new Rose of Tralee. And of course, yesterday morning we learned of the news of the death of former Taoiseach and businessman Albert Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds had been in ill health for some time and he was 81 years of age. Stay with us, as earlier in the day I interviewed a long-time friend of his and a business associate of his, Donie Cassidy. Donie paid tribute to the man, private and public, that he has known for almost 50 years. Okay, and yes folks, the roadworks are still ongoing around Cavan town. As you know, Irish Water, in association with Cavan County Council, are upgrading town sewage system, and traffic is delayed around town and there are closures and diversions in operation. So if you need to plan a trip to town, please do plan an alternative route. And remember, there's free parking in the multi-storey car park, so do avail of that. Okay, Irish beef farmers are up in arms over new sanctions imposed upon them, and we'll have more on that as the chairperson of Cavan County Council, IFA, is in the studio with us. Okay, so we go to some local town news now, and Virginia had its agricultural show on this week, its annual agricultural show on this week on Thursday last. This show is one of the biggest in the northeastern region, and this year entry on the gate surpassed all other years, so well done there up in Virginia. And last of the summer festivals is in Ballylong, and that's having its summer festival this weekend. It's going to have a vintage show, sports for all the family, dog show, live street music, and it all accumulates on Sunday evening with a barn dance, and music there is by Last Chance. Okay, so we move on to Lara, and the monthly get-together for Advanced People Club is on Thursday at 3 p.m. in the community centre, and new members are welcome. Black Lion News, local artists are exhibiting their work in the Macnean Resource Centre. That's on for 2 weeks. It's a brilliant exhibition from local artists. Please do come along and support. Carol Beattie of the Alzheimer's Association emailed us to say thanks to all who supported her fundraiser. That was on August the 3rd, and that was the Forget Me Not Walk and the Race Night, and they raised over €800 then. In Ballyjames Zumba fitness classes resume in St Joseph's Hall on Monday nights. That's starting on Monday, September the 3rd. And the children's martial arts classes will start in St Teresa's Hall on Friday nights at 7 o'clock, and that's for children aged between 8 and 13. In Belturbet, rowing takes place on Mondays and Thursday evenings at 6:30. The meeting point is opposite the Emerald Star. For a place, you must ring 049 9522 031 and come along on the evening. In Ghana, if you're a fisherman or indeed a fisherwoman, competition time this Sunday, August the 24th. Please contact Kieran for details on 086 8579 156. Bailieborough, story time for children aged between 4 and 7 in the County Library, is having its last Wednesday, this Wednesday, between 11 and 12 o'clock on Wednesday morning. Please come along, children, as it's the last story time before you go back to school. And don't forget, this weekend is the McGovern Clan Weekend Festival, and that's a 2-day festival down in Swanlin Bar. It starts tonight, and tonight there is a talk on the life and times of the McGovern clan. and that has been given by Father Liam Kelly, and if you remember Father Liam Kelly, he also co-wrote the book on Loreto College Cavan. It's just simply called Loreto College 1930 to 2013, and after the talk there will be music by Cultus, Cultori Air and Swanland Bar and refreshments for all in the hall. Saturday tomorrow sees a guided walk of Cavan's Deer Park, and Sunday sees a guided walk of the Shannon Pot. Each day there will be a bus leaving the village, Bombay village, at 1 o'clock, and in the evening there will be refreshments served afterwards in the hall. Okay, great evenings with an opportunity to chat and dance are on again on Thursday night at 8 o'clock in the old school Templeport, and only €8 for a great night's dancing and socialising. Belturbet Library is hosting an exhibition of photographs all about Cavan railways. That's from the past, obviously, as we don't have any now. It opens on Friday, that's today, and it goes on until October. And also in Belturbet, the multi-award winning short play Volkswagen Joe, short film Volkswagen Joe, will be shown next Friday night, the 29th, in the Town Hall Community and Civic Centre. Okay, so that's a brief roundup of the county news this week, and that takes me nice and neatly into my first guest in the studio this evening. As I said earlier in the news, there have been some demonstrations around the county and indeed the country, and all about the beef crisis at the moment. That takes me to Jim Spears. Jim, you're welcome all the way from Stradone and Cavan, and you're the county chairperson of the IFA. Jim, you were out in Naas yesterday evening, and indeed you were in Navan the evening before. But if anybody's had their head in the sand, would you please tell us about the beef crisis?
Indeed, Anya, thank you for the opportunity to explain the beef crisis on behalf of the farmers, probably from Cavan and indeed from all around Ireland. Yeah, Anya, we had a meeting on Tuesday evening in the Ardbine Hotel in Navan, and it was literally to meet with the factory buyers and stakeholders for the factories, and it was a very irate, hot meeting. Farmers were very frustrated. There are a lot of farmers out there in dire straits. Cattle is selling now and can't get them sold. So the factories really, I suppose they were.
So just to briefly explain to people what is happening. The beef factories, you could call it a cartel maybe of things. You've got like Keepack and we named them there earlier. You've got AIPB and Liffey Meats. Okay, they seem to be in a cartel, and they have this spec, and they say to the farmers, this is what we want, this is what we want now. And sometimes they change that, and they've actually changed it now from allowing you 20 months to rear beef. They've now changed it to a shorter time, and right. This is what's having the farmers up in arms, isn't it?
That was I think that was the hottest part of the meeting in Ardbine, indeed, when the representative from the factory there, he was actually from Dunbee, a factory, he spoke about like we're allowed to keep cattle, and really, Anya, there are no different in cattle whether they're 30 months of age or 31 months of age.
So why are the farmers up in arms?
But the factories seems to want, they'll cut the price once they cross 30 months for steers, bulls once they cross 24 months, but there are markets out there for them, but they say they need them under these ages. Now the factories wants for the, literally, England's taking 53% of our beef, and they say now that the Tesco's has brought down the standard again to 16-month beef and maybe 14-month. And really we can't have cattle. Ireland is noted for its green image. Beef off grass. That's the way Board Bia sells our beef. That's the way we like to sell our beef. That's the natural way to have beef, and that's the nice way to have beef. But you can't have beef ready, an animal ready for slaughter for beef at 14 months off grass. So it seems to be the factory just wants us to shove them into a pen, push them at meal and get them out, and they have a spec. Some time ago they wanted big heavy cattle. That was the whole thing. The bigger, heavier they were, the better. Now when there are lots of big heavy cattle out there, all they want now is small, dainty little cattle at 14 and 16 months for the markets. They seem to change the spec all the time on you, and that's our grief. That was the sore point that came out of the meeting in Ardbine the other night, and they announced this new spec, and that's the word, the new specification as it is on you, called.
Yeah, that's what we've been hearing in the news.
That's right.
And as well, just to get to the points of this, just tell me, you know, there is a difference between a cattle and an animal that would be force-fed on meal, as you say, in comparison to something that's fed on grass.
Of course, our image here in Ireland is green Ireland. I don't care where you go, and I suppose it's fair to say, Anya, I was out abroad myself this year, and that is the image. I was talking to a man from Norway, and he has this image of our beef being green, off grass, and it is the natural way to feed it, and it's even your milk and everything is coming off the grass. Is the natural way, but you cannot produce beef at that age off grass. It's this force feeding, and that isn't natural. We can import force food meat if we want it from America, where they are forced, and that's okay. They're allowing all that, and that's okay. But our image, we want to stick to our image. Board Bia comes round. QPS is my farm, which is quality assured my farm, and they want all this Board Bia. That's the image they're selling our meat on, green Ireland, and then the factories turn round and want this speck of meat.
Would it be fair to say that this green image of beef is what they marketed as in England?
Exactly.
In England.
And
so,
over
and
Europe.
that is like over 50% of your cattle go there. So that's it. So you want to keep the quality up as you are providing. But the supermarkets now are coming in and saying we want shorter times, earlier animals. But you can't do that with the quality.
It's the factories really that's dictating that spec.
Okay.
Like, and you did say about England, we're selling it. Like, Board Bia is in a lot of different countries all throughout Europe, and that's their big image, to sell our green meat. We see though in Germany, we're over ourselves in Spain last year. That was Board Bia's big thing, was to sell our beef. As I said, I was talking to a fellow from Norway. He has this image of Ireland being green, and that's where we are hurted now. And it's costing us too much then, Anya.
Can
We
I
can't
ask you
produce
one question
this
there,
beef
Jim,
at this.
Can I ask you one question? If the factories take in your beef, they give you this spec and they want this beef, will they provide that cheaper to their customer? What about the consumer? If the consumer wants to take a cheaper beef, a cheaper cut at a cheaper price, that's the demand for the factories.
There is a cheaper cut out there, but you either have to go the quality road or the money road, you know. And we know, like, that the Tesco's.
Do you think, is that behind the role of what the farmers? Yeah, is it consumer driven? Is that what the cartel of the factories are trying to do? Please.
Yeah, you see. The factories they want to dictate the different specs of cattle. The reason the idea in this is, we believe, that I myself was in Ballyjim's Mart last week, and it was just a sea of white cattle, which are Shari cattle, these good big cattle, which we were, Teagasc asked us to breed into, and which is rightly so. We have to get better, we have to produce more efficient animals, which they are more efficient animals, these Shari cattle. When I was younger, it was all these small, high-spec cattle, Hereford Cross and Angus Cross. Then the factory didn't want them, they wanted these good Shari cattle. Now when we've all them to sell, they don't want them, they want these other. And it's just a way of keeping the thing down. That really is. We can't blame the supermarkets for wanting this spec. Of course they want nice meat, but there is nice meat coming off those. We're still killing these animals under 24 months. Like, they're still young meat, like it is young fresh meat, like. But the factories are using this as a lever to keep the price of the meat down.
So the farmers do in effect feel powerless because they're at the bespoke of what the factories throw them out and spec. They tell them what they want. Is there any way that this can be regulated? You spoke about regulations. Is there any way that there can be a regulator to say, well, you know, this is fair, this isn't fair, this
That's
is
a very
reasonable.
good point, Anya. That's a very, very relevant point at this moment in time, and we are blaming our minister here.
Yes, I was going to ask you about Minister Coveney.
Minister Coveney, he talks the talk, but he doesn't walk the walk. We would find that he was a very articulate man when he became minister and a good speaker now. But he really isn't getting in. We know our farms have to be quality assured, as I said earlier on. We have to do everything right. We are being inspected. They can walk in the farm. All these big businesses can run the thing whatever way they like, and there's no regulator. Minister Coveney has to get off his butt here and put in a regulator and make the whole beef system more transparent. We're having a problem with the transparency. Meat's going in, meat's dearer in the shops now than it was, say, some 6-8 months ago. Yeah. It's literally dearer.
Well,
and in England.
Did that not happen as the result of the horse meat?
No.
That put in, like, nobody's, you know, like.
see, the minister got off his butt when there was a problem there.
Yeah.
And really got in on the whole horse meat thing and sorted it out. And it wasn't altogether the one factory or the one. It was just coming in all over the board. It was put in boxes. And I suppose once they did realise it was escaping in, the minister got off the shelves straight away, cleaned the shelves, cleaned the boxes, cleaned out the factories. And took a beating. The country did take a beating, or the business or the industry took a beating, and the thing went forward clean. We're clean now. Now the factories are taking advantage of this. We can't understand. Our problem is, whereas our cattle are €200 and €300 a piece less now than they were 12 months. We'll say last spring 12 months. They're €300 less today, the same animal. Where is this money gone? And beef steer are on the shelves for the housewife, for the consumer. Right. Beef is there. Where is this 300? And we want Minister Coveney to get up and make this whole business transparent. The price we're getting at the factory gate and the price has gone out at the other end. And
is he doing anything?
Literally, the factories have pulled the price of beef last week again by another 15 cents. And that is hurtful on farmers that's after coming through a rough spring with a good summer's grass, green images we've talked about, and now all of a sudden they've pulled the price of it back. They think we've got a free run of grass and that we can afford to take less for our beef now. There's people out there are hurting very badly on this beef. Teagasc figures are on you that you would need to be getting €4 a kilo for beef to break even, and it's at 365 for all trade, a type of grade, the grade which there is a grade, and then it's based on a grade. Lower grades, lower price, and higher grades, but it's usually based on R3 grades, and it's just a figure R3, and it's 365 today. And
what will happen with these animals like that are 24 months now that you have no market for? What's going to happen now?
They are killing them. The factory man showed us.
But they're giving you a less price
yes.
for them.
Porrick Brown was the man that was there the other night, and he did show us all the markets out there, but he's given us a less price for this fact. Whether they're taking a less price, this is where we want the transparency into it, Anya.
Yeah.
Are they taking a less price at the other end? Of course they're giving us a less price, and this is their lever to keep the price down. And cattle become that age. They're becoming that age now. Of course, the cattle born last spring 2 years ago are becoming 30 months, and they know that, and there's a lot of cattle coming out on the market. Yeah. I suppose, Anya, it's fair to say, like, farmers bought into keeping their cattle 2 years ago, Frisian bull calves and all the different calves and cattle. And there are 33,000 cattle killing in the factories every week, and the factories say they only have 27,000, markets for 27,000. But there are markets all out there to Europe. We can't accept that, but this is their lever. We are hoping down the road, there are 150,000 calves less in the country this year, been rare. But between calves that are being exported and calves that are not, there are that many less cows. There are about 50,000 calves exported and 90,000 less cows.
Okay, so this is where you want the transparency.
And that is an unfair thing for agriculture going forward in Ireland. That we get rid of our base animal, our cow, our production for the cow that produces the calf and the milk, that we have to slaughter her and keep less of them to try and keep the price of beef up. Like, that is not good for this country.
It's not good for farming, and
it's not good for the country on a general area, because we export. We were hoping to export 14 million euros worth of billion euros worth of product next year. We can't export it if we haven't got it. So if we have less cows.
Okay, now let's get back to the IFA, and then you've got the grassroots IFA as well. And what are they fighting on? Is that a kind of a breakaway from the IFA?
Which, sorry?
The grassroots.
Are you talking about the group in over the west of Ireland? Or no? Like, we were up in we moved up. We embarked on Tesco yesterday. Then
you're putting pressure on.
Yeah,
okay,
they were the base. So they are the hardcore IFA. We are the hardcore. Our president was there and he spoke, and our national beef chairman Henry Burns and Eddie Down were there, and we all supported him, just to put pressure on the Tesco's to let them know that we are not happy. You see, the factories are blaming the Tesco's for this spec. Yeah. The Tesco's are blaming the retailers, and the retailer. So we have to hit them all. Tuesday night the factory men, Thursday night the Tesco's. We don't know. We are going to have to gear it up more again, because we really will not. It's an industry that's day in and day in fast, and it's a very real figure out there with Chagos. This industry is day in and day in fast, and people are losing money. And how long do they keep going at that? You know, and it's a serious crisis. It is a serious. We did
But
think.
is this not an ongoing thing with you and with farmers, that you have to juggle and deal with the factories,
of course,
and deal with these specifications? Because the market, you know, you're not agreeing that it could be the market or consumer driven. It won't be the same. It will be changing. It can't suit the farmer, so things will be changing. And do you not having, like, all along, quite often you do come against this where you're having to change things,
of course,
and this happens quite often. But it seems like you're not willing to change.
You see,
or maybe, you know, like, what is the problem like?
the powers to be are getting bigger, as we know, the Tesco's and all those. We take all the.
You're talking about the factories buying the beef, okay?
No, and no, the supermarkets, the supermarkets, and they're like, there's all this. When we want to get beef, like, we know that IFA put $500,000 into getting beef on the shelves in England some 2 months ago, to get Irish beef on the shelf. That's hello money. That's what that's called. So in other words, bring it in hello, we'll bring that money in, so we'll take your meat in and put it on the shelves and see what the customers buying. And the customers are buying it. We don't have a problem with that. And then but the Tesco's are coming in then, and they're demanding 6 months of credit, and they want to have it sold out.
Okay, I can see where the farmer then is backed up into a corner.
And we're backed into a corner.
But what's stopping you from getting together, like, as a group of farmers, or as a group of growers, you know, breeders of beef, and you getting a group together, and you know, being in control of your own thing, and you being able to, you know, like, shots over and back the net, you've been able to control them like as they are controlling you. Like, co-ops can do this kind of thing. Why can't you get to do something like that?
Yeah, appreciate that. The co-ops can do that, as in the milk, because we're on a home market. Like, we have to depend on Board B and the factories to market this meat out, and they are doing a good job on marketing our beef out. Like, I think Dundee has said there's something like 26 countries that they're putting beef into, all throughout Europe. No group of farmers has either time or the ability or the skills or the know-how or the wherewithal to do all this. Like, factories did belong to farmers at one time, and co-ops, and they really fell asunder. And it was no fault of the farmers, it was no fault of the people who's in it, but they don't have the, like, we can take our own local factory, who is Frank Mullins, and that's okay, Liffey Meats, it's no harm. He has the markets, he has the contacts, he has the wherewithal, he has the salespeople there to sell that. We're dependent on him to do that, but not to exploit us. And I'm not naming him on his own, of course.
Okay, so realistically, what can you get Simon Coveney to do? What can you get him to do?
To make them, the whole beef business, from it leaves the farm till it gets to the shelves, the transparency of the price of it.
And maybe a regulation.
And regulator. And will it be regulators that would be doing that? And it's up to him. Obviously, Minister Coveney can't go in and do that himself. But he needs to get regulators in there. Like, he has people regulating our farms all the time.
Yeah.
Minister Coveney has people there paid to come out and regulate what way I treat my animals with drugs, what way I keep my milk and that's my sheds.
So a point is ringing in my head there, Jim, about, like, when you're saying, instead of getting 20 months to get your cattle, you know, ready for table, that you're now putting it down to 18, and 14 months. Right. Now, listen to me, that I could be ringing in my ears. So next thing, you will have people using stuff to try and pump it into their cattle to get the size and the quantity and the weight that they want. Is there a danger of that as well?
Of course that danger stands there. But Minister Coveney won't allow that with his regulators or his staff.
So you're tightly regulated that way?
We are every animal. Like, and I think it's fair to say this, Anya, I milk cows, and there's a sample of milk taken off my tank every second day when the man comes, and it has to stand 7 tests. That milk has to stand 7 tests, and I'll assure you, there's no water, there's no antibiotics, there's no drugs in it, there's no anything, and I suppose, to be fair, Anya, and I don't want to, we can't knock it. It's world trade, it's a big world out there. America are using all this stuff to get in there to produce the beef, and it's coming into Europe, and if that's okay, if they want to use it, but we are not allowed to use it. We don't want to use it. It's not the way forward. We're selling on our green image what we like, what we want, and what we believe is good.
Okay, so do you think that changing the spec now is damaging the quality, ultimately lowering the quality of your green beef?
Well, it's damaging our image. That's what it's doing. It may not know the quality of the beef. Probably the beef will be nice and young. It's the same as veal meat, but we do not want to go on that road, that image. We do not want. We can sell. You're going into a veal meat job then, and Europe is into that. I was in Italy myself. I was in Spain. They're into that veal meat. And they don't have the grass. They don't have the weather to grow the grass. We have this moist weather all the time. Sometimes too much rain, but we do manage because we do get enough good weather. They can't do it. They don't have it. And they can't do it. So they're into the veal meat, and there's people who likes that veal meat, but we are selling our green image meat, and that's what we want to see. And we are disappointed now that the factories is pushing us out of this other road. And then we're disappointed with the Tesco's that they seem to be handling the thing back up the way. We've stepped up 2 gears. Both our president and our national chairman did say yesterday when we were leaving NACE.
Eddie Feeney,
sorry.
What's his name, the president?
Eddie Donie is our
Downey,
president,
Downey,
and Henry Burns is our national beef chairman.
Now, just to get back to you're stepping up now,
yeah.
and you went out on last Tuesday evening. You went to the Arboin, and it was very heated, and the media had to leave as well.
Indeed, it was.
Indeed, I think the beef barns nearly had to leave as well for their safety as
that
well.
is
Very
right.
heated.
That's fair.
So now, what are you going to do? Are you going to do more strike demonstrations again? Who are you pressurising? Are you pressuring Cavan, or are you pressurising the beef, the factories?
They seem to all have to get it. We started. We have been. This has been negotiated since last spring. Anya, we didn't want to go down this road. Either our president or our national beef chairman did not want to go down the road of taking businessmen, and that's what factory people are, taking them into a room and trashing them, and that's what happened the other night. And it's not fair on them. We don't want that. We have to work with them. We have to live with them. We depend on them. We need them. We don't want trash. We don't want to come down and disturbing the people in the Tesco stores down there. We need the consumers. Yeah. We need the people to buy our beef. We need all that. But we are pushed to this. We are at our wits' end now, coming into a winter and cutting the price of beef again on you. Coming into a winter. Like if we're going out of the winter, you're going into the grass. We can't. The people can't afford it. As I've talked about, this green beef coming off, all our beef's coming off grass now. Cattle has been out since last March, April, say mid-March onwards. Cattle have been out. They've been eating green grass, happy, non-stressed.
Yeah, they've had we've had 2 good summers.
We've had
the bad summer.
And now when we have the beef ready, they want to pull the price up.
Okay.
And our problem is...
It's a no-win situation, nearly, it seems, for farmers
that's right.
at the moment.
Our problem is beef is dearer on the shelf and it's less in the factories. And that's the bottom line. And where is the difference in the money? And that's what we want Minister Cavan to get in on. And we want the factories to show us that. And we want the Tesco's to pay us. We don't want... A farmer will never become rich. A farmer's never... And it won't be ever.
It is a business now. It is a business.
But we need a living.
Yeah.
It's a shame when every beef farmer has to go out and get a job and keep other people at a job to keep a bit on his own table at home. And that's happening.
Yeah.
I know, and I can name them here, but there's no need. I know farmers are just closing up, and that's it. They're at every cross.
Okay, so you're calling on the Minister, Simon Coveney, for regulation of this.
Indeed.
Now, and you did, and you will. Okay, how long do you think, realistically speaking, before you will have regulation?
There is no magic date
because
here.
you said this started last.
Exactly,
I know, but you said this. Yeah. You knew this problem was going to come up like last fall. Okay, so now is the ball rolling on that itself even yet?
It's going to depend on the minister. Just is he going to see through this that we are? And I suppose it's fair to say, Anya, Ireland depends a lot on agriculture. There's statistics out there. I don't have them with me now, and there's no need to read out a pile of statistics, Anya. But the percentage of people that's employed in agriculture in Ireland, if they're gone, they're gone. We have the little co-ops, we have the fertiliser, we have the meal mills, we have the drugs, the vets, we have the farmers, and all the swing off we have of all that. Out in the country, that's where I am from, everybody's dependent on the farmer out there. We have no businesses for them.
And as we know from the fodder crisis, that the farmer is dependent on the climate. And that's another factor that you can't. That's an act of God. You have to factor in this as well.
But to be fair to God, he always matches it up every year, and it's a known fact from I was started farming. Nearly the same amount of grass goes every year, and in general, if you get a bad summer, you get a fairly good winter, and you get through
farming
it.
Wise.
We are not complaining about that, and we can't change it, and we don't want anybody to change it. We got great support from EU. We got money to put up good sheds, accommodation for cattle. Anybody that wanted that, and we have good accommodation, and cattle are well looked after, and that is expected from Board B too, that we look after cattle. There is an animal welfare thing. If we have one animal, not another, and I'm inspected, I'm called over the coals for that. Like, I have to keep my animals
Well, it
right.
is a business, you know, it is a business.
We want that. The better I mind my cattle on you, the better they do, the less stress they have, the more they'll thrive, and that's important to me. And it's kilos that makes money.
Okay,
but
Jim,
that's personally with me.
Yeah,
we'll
we
go
have to
back.
get to the end of that
The
now.
beef, yeah.
One thing you do want to see out of this, we understand now, and you explained very well, and you got to the nitty gritties of it. Is the crisis? It is a crisis there for farmer. And the one thing now that you can hope for, and will sort of stop this thing from happening again down the road of the factors changing their spec, is if you have a regulation.
That is right.
And so you are pressurising Cavan to get this in.
Big time, yeah.
Okay, well, Jim, thanks very much. And is that the last thing you'd like to say on that now?
Yeah, I suppose it's a pitiful way to think of things, but when there's less cattle, there'll be more money for them, and it's a shame. Then there's less animals too. Like, we do know there's going to be 150,000 less on stream for killing next year, and that's a big figure. That's a lot of money. Like, 80%, 8 of every 10, 80% of all our beef is exported. That's a huge income for Ireland, for the number of animals is in there.
It is our biggest export market.
If we start to bring down the numbers of cows, which farmers are doing big time. I know one man has cut his cows by half. I know another man that had 30 cows and he now has 12. Them two boys that I was talking at Virginia show the other day, and they're just sick of it because they know the whole crisis on Tuesday night, they know the thing was coming up on Thursday. We talked about it, a man once said, "Which is not worth my while going now." And it's a shame if we have to bring back our cattle numbers to crush the factories into paying us what we should be getting for them, and still they have a profit. Like, we know the factories are big entrepreneurs and they've made a lot of money, and nobody wants to stop their business. Everybody that sets up a business is very well entitled to it, and I dare say any man that bought up a factory and built it up worked hard to do it and paid people. We don't want to change that. As I said earlier on this, Anya, we need the factories, we need them, we need the people,
need the consumers,
and we need the consumers. But we don't like to be exploited.
That's
Thank you,
brilliant.
Anya.
Thanks for clearing up those points. Thanks very much. And we do hope somehow that it will be resolved down the line, and that you don't find yourself again and again the rebounds in the situation again and again. And we do hope that they will come to a solution, because we all know that when the farmers are happy, most people are happy.
and I suppose finally I'll say something on that, Anya. The farmer, when he has money, he will spend it. And there isn't a question about that, and I'm probably one of them myself, and everybody, no farmer has gone out and bought a house in Spain because it's not that they don't want it, but to get more satisfaction out of building a shed at home on the farm, or changing their tractor, or doing something. And as soon as they've money, and when the farming's going good, and I suppose that I believe this, because obviously I want to believe it. I'm farming all my life, and I hope to be on ahead. I want to believe when agriculture's good, the thing is good. Like, we knew what we can cast.
The country's good when the farm is good. The country's good. We want to see that. We ultimately want to see that. I'd like to thank you very much, Jim, for coming into the studio, and thanks and good luck with the demonstrations.
Thank you,
and we do hope they get a resolve. Okay, so just before I go to my next interview, I want to remind you of the Ballinamore Fringe Festival, and it's live on Leitrim TV on the 23rd of August. That's tomorrow, and it's from the all day live from afternoon till late, and you've got fantastic fringe down, everything down there. You've got live music, comedy, street performance, and lots more. So log on and watch that, and it's all free. Okay, so as I said earlier in the news there, during yesterday morning we woke up to hear of the news of the death of our ex-Taoiseach, or our former Taoiseach, Albert Reynolds. And to talk on the man, I contacted Donie Cassidy, and gratefully he came into the studio. And Donie gave a great talk on Albert Reynolds, the private man and the public man. So we'll go to that now. Earlier in the programme, yesterday morning, we were greeted with the news of the sad death of Albert Reynolds. And as you know, Albert was a great businessman and a great politician for Ireland. And we did think it would be a great tribute to bring somebody who knew him very well into the programme. Cavan TV invited Donie Cassidy, who was a great lifelong friend of Albert in all his life, and we invited him to come into the studio, and thankfully he did come into the studio. And with me now is Donie Cassidy.
Thanks very much, Anya, and it's indeed a great pleasure to be here in Cavan TV for the first time. Can we wish you all the best of luck?
Thank you very much.
And it's a sad occasion, I suppose, but it's also a joyful occasion because we're celebrating the life of a man who really made a major contribution. And I have known Albert since going back to 1964, and it ironically happened through the world of entertainment. We were to play before Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash at the time had a massive hit with 40 Shades of Green. He was appearing in the Lakeland Ballroom in Mullingar, and we went in for the rehearsals at 5 o'clock. And the phone rang at the end of the ballroom at about 5:15, and it was the old black telephone at the time. You press A for the money to go in and press B for the money to come back out. But I went down and took the telephone call anyway, and he says, "Hello, my name is Albert Reynolds. I'm the person running the dance here tonight. Can I speak to Johnny Cash very urgently?" So I went up and said to Mr. Cash that Mr. Reynolds wanted to speak to him very urgently. So he went down, took the telephone call, came back up, and he said, "Boys, the dance has been cancelled." And we all asked him why, and he says, "The Holy Father, Pope John the 23rd, had just died. So everything was cancelled. RT played solemn music for the remainder of the day. And about 3/4 of an hour later, Albert Reynolds came into the hall. And that was the first time that we met. He brought us all down to the Malacca Cafe in Mullingar, and we had chicken and chips. And then we all got a dessert. And of course, we all took a Knickerbocker glory. And Albert was at the table sitting with us. And we've been lifelong friends ever since. And we have practically nearly all the same in business, in entertainment, and in politics.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Just before we just talk, like your last visit with him was at Christmas.
Yes.
But he had Alzheimer's for
Yes.
a while. Can you tell us about that? Like exactly how long and
Well,
how much did he know about himself, and was he aware of his illness?
The last time I met with him, he looked absolutely fantastic. He was beautifully dressed, as he always was. And it's a great credit, of course, to Kathleen. And we had, it was a lovely occasion. And we had a very private visit, and we had a lovely mass in the house. And the great faith that both Kathleen and Albert has been a testament to the great family they have had, and to the lovely people that they are. And it was fitting that Albert died on the 135th anniversary of the apparition of Knock. And it was a lovely occasion. And he would be smiling over at you, and we were talking there, and at the end of the lovely mass that was being said, and the tea and the sandwiches afterwards. But a little did I think at that time that would be the last time that we would see him, you know. So
okay, he's a great man. He lived to 81 years of age.
He did, yes.
He had a very colourful life, no more than your life as well.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about you near the end.
Yeah.
Your lives kind of were running on a parallel, even though he's much older than you. But to get back to talk about the great man himself, he's from Rooski. He's not a Longford man. He's from Rooski in County Roscommon. And his first job was as a public servant in the what is he in
CIE.
In the CIE.
Well, he was born in Rooski, and his sister and Joe, his brother, and Jim, who's the Longford Arms, and who still carries on the hotel in the Longford Arms there. Joe has passed on to his eternal reward. And Albert was working in Sligo with CIE, and then he progressed and he got involved in running a carnival for the local parish, and the local parish wanted the funds for 3 years. So after 3 years, the carnival, it was touch and go. It was going to continue to go. So Albert continued running the carnival with others, and then he realised the opportunity that there was in the world of entertainment. And then
You're talking when here, the 1960s?
Very early 60s.
Very early 60s.
And then you had Cloudland became a reality in Rooski, next door to where they were all born. And then he had the Fairyland in Roscommon. He had the Lakeland in Mullingar. Down in Limerick, when Shannon opened up, he had Jetland in Limerick.
When you say,
and of course, he had the Roseland and Moat. Well, there were the Jim, his brother, came back from Australia, and they invested then in the business, the entertainment business. And I think the second hall that they built was the Roseland and Moat. And I remember being told by Ben Dolan of Joe Dolan and the Drifters fame, the incredible crowd that there was in Moat at Ackerbilk. He was a Stranger on the Shore, had a big hit in 1961 and all of that. And Albert then toured. He toured Kenny Ball and had the contracts and all signed. right before Midnight in Moscow went #3 in the British charts, and they had an incredible success story. But I went to see, then when the Lakeland opened in Mullingar, I saw Roy Orbison there, saw Dusty Springfield there, and Lonnie Dunnigan. All of those big stars at the time were all there. And Albert was one of the biggest promoters in the country. He was responsible for booking all the bands for all the Reynolds organisation at the time. And we all knew him as a great friend. And sure, if Albert was giving you one date, he'd probably give you 20 dates. So he progressed from that then into his business life. And he started this incredible success story that C&D Foods, which is Cat and Dog, in Edgerstown with his son Philip. And they not alone have employed hundreds of people over the last number of years, they have employed thousands of people. And there are many families there who their children are still working there. And it's an incredible success story. And yesterday, paying tribute to Albert, that was the side of it that I really imagine out in the middle of really Midlands where there's very little opportunity. He starts this business. He establishes a massive brand name with the multiples in the UK. Stainberries were the first to take in his products. And he had an incredible success story. But if you met Albert Reynolds, he built his trust on you straight away. He was tremendous. He was totally confident all the time. He was high in energy, and his word was his bond. I don't think I ever had a contract with Albert Reynolds. It was a handshake, or I won't let you down. And that's the way he conducted his business. And he was a very sharp brain, and he certainly was someone that really, when you met with him, well, you'd be thinking about things that he said for maybe 2 or 3 days afterwards. I'm a very good ideas person, but he certainly was the king as far as I was concerned. And we were that
would
massive
you have
trust.
Looked up to him now in the
Oh
days?
yeah, well, he would be a leader. He would be a leader the same as, say, Oliver Barry, Jim Aiken, and Albert Reynolds. They were the top 3 people that I would have looked up to in my time in relation to promoters. And then, say, Tom Costello, Mick Clarkin, that's now with Daniel O'Donnell. They were the leaders in the field in the recording industry from the Irish band's point of view. And then the managers would have been, say, Seamus Casey. He created Joe Dolan, and then we have now Paul McGuinness from U2. So there would be the leaders in the field for I to take the best example of, and to know that there was an incredible industry there, that here's an opportunity that if you get one good hit, then you're on your way to becoming pretty successful financially after that. And that was the norm at the time. So then Albert progressed on then, and one day he said to me, I'm going to stand for the council elections. We used to meet at the council, meet at conventions. And Longford and Westmeath was the one constituency. I was the North Westmeath part of it with the late Joe Kennedy. I was his driver for many years before he died. And then Albert and Frank Carter, the late Frank Carter, who was a great friend of Joe Kennedy's, and who I knew very, very well in the Longford area, along with Mickey Doherty and Ned Riley. He was the chairman of the organisation. And I worked with Jimmy Coyle and all of those great colleagues in the Longford County Council then for very many years when I became a councillor in Westmeath. And the Midland Health Board was Longford, Westmeath, Laois and Offaly. So we were all very closely intertwined, and we worked very hard for each other to try and get the funds. But I was thinking coming down in the car here today, like how lucky we were really in the Midland area, because we had Albert became minister then. Albert then went on for the county council, and he got elected. He got elected to the county council.
What took him into politics? What made him take the step into politics?
Well, I suppose he was also a publisher. He had the Longford News, and you see Stephen Collins today, how successful a journalist he is, and Liam Collins, his brother, with the Independent Group, and they worked for Albert Reynolds, and very many others who went. John Donlan, who was so closely identified with the Sunday World, he was another employee of Albert's with the Longford News. And Albert really was trying to play a part in Longford and get Longford going and up and running and all of that. And it was practically impossible unless you were sitting at the cabinet table because resources were so scarce.
Okay, so he did get into politics.
From that point of view then he said he'd have to go for the council to get into politics. So he went for the council in 1974. He became president of the Chamber of Commerce in Longford. I saw a little shot of that on the television on prime time last night. And then in 1977, his problem was to try and get the nomination to go for the Dáil. So in North Westmeath, I was the secretary of the Court of Cantor for Fianna Fáil. And of course, I drove him around to meet all the delegates, and nearly everyone except 2 delegates all voted for Albert at that convention, because the sitting TD was also standing at that convention.
Yeah.
But we got him through that convention then, and Albert then had one of the greatest razzmatazz campaigns.
Now, can I ask
in
you a question,
77.
Donie?
Yes, you can.
He was a great Longford Westmeath man. He did all that
Yes.
work for there, and he wanted to get into the politics
Yes.
to get there. Now, do you feel, and this is a hard question, that when he perhaps did get to Dublin and as far as the Dáil and that they, the Dublin Four or Dublin people in the Pale, whatever they like to call themselves, that it was hard for him to get into that circle, maybe?
Well, it was, but he was coming with a tremendous track record, and the fact
There's a little bit of snobbery there, wouldn't there have been?
Well,
he was a country boy after all, and he was into country music, and this kind of thing was not very popular in Dublin, or it just wasn't done in Dublin.
Well, I think there's a lot of people mixing up country and Western music. Western has gone out of country 40 years ago, since Gene Archie took the spurs off his boots, but it was country people and the Western wing, which was the west of Ireland. And that became very prominent a little later on, which I'll tell you about. But the winning of the 77 general election was crucial from Albert's point of view. And Sean Keegan, the late Sean Keegan, our TD in Westmeath, he got elected that day, and then Albert got elected straight after him. And then Albert came into the Dáil then. And Larry Cunningham, the late Larry Cunningham, along with Mickey Doherty and Ned Riley, as I said, and Paddy Farrell and Newtown Cash, and all the great people, Louis McIntyre, the councillors, Barney Steele, and all those great people, Jimmy Coyle, that played their part to get Albert elected. He then became very, very respected within the parliamentary party of Fianna Fáil, and made some outstanding contributions in relation to industry and commerce.
He would have been in there with the likes of John Wilson as well. So I was looking at programmes last night paying tribute to him, and I would have seen that John Wilson was very much to his side at all times in this.
When Albert became Taoiseach, he appointed John Wilson as Taoiseach. So when I was driving down the road today, I passed John Wilson's house outside Fidé. He was the Taoiseach. Albert was the Taoiseach in Longford. Mary O'Rourke was the Minister of State. And then I myself in Castlepollard went on to become leader of the Shannon for 4 occasions. Like, that was an unbelievable power base in a small little catchment area to try and get funds away from the cabinet table, which were traditionally going, the vast majority of them, to the Dublin area. And that's where the Western came in with the Dublin media. They started putting country and Western. And when Albert, one of his major achievements was going to Edinburgh in 1992 and getting the 8.4 billion there. But when it came back to be discussed at cabinet table, as Ray McSharry told the nation on drive time in RT yesterday evening, Dublin wanted the majority of the funding, but they said no. A third went to Dublin, a third went to Munster, or south of Ireland, and the other third went to the Midlands and the west of Ireland. And that's why we got such massive amounts of funds for leader funding, cohesion funding and structural funding. And it was down to Albert, the good bargaining person that he was. He was a tremendous person to meet and try and do a deal with. He was as hard as nails. But when he did the deal, he carried it out to the last word. And that's where that country and Western wing was coming up by the D4, who really wouldn't understand very much outside that particular area. But the majority of the hardcore of the votes over the last number of years, both for Fine Gael and for Fianna Fáil, has been outside of the D4 area. And I think that's never more brought home, that when Albert, Ray McSharry and Maura Geoghegan Quinn were sitting at the cabinet table with Charles Haughey on that occasion. So.
Okay, so he got to be Taoiseach, and
yes.
You know, they say a week is a long time in politics,
Yeah.
but he was there almost 3 years in politics.
Yes.
And he went through some pretty hard things, like he went through the X case
He did,
file,
yes,
he
yes.
went through the Beef Tribunal,
Yes.
and also then we had the Attorney General, Harry Whelan, who didn't deal with the Brendan Smith case very well. He had a lot of stuff in there in his short tenure as Taoiseach.
Yeah, but the first thing, in 1979, Mr. Haughey became Taoiseach, and he appointed Albert to telecommunications. And at the time, there was a 1.5 to 2 years delay on telephones. And
yes, I saw that in an interview.
Albert
last
in 1980.
night. He promised everybody telephones by 1984.
Yeah.
He would have it in within a week.
Well, at that address last night on prime time, that took place in 1980 Ardèche, and he got 25% of the budget allocation in 1980 to improve the telecommunications in Ireland. So he promised 60,000 by 82, and he promised 100,000 by 84,
Yes.
and he lived up to those promises. And now we have one of the most modern technologies in the world, really. But when Ronald Reagan came to Ballyporeen in, I think it was the mid-80s, at that stage we had moved into the digital era, and it was just incredible how modern we had become in 5 or 6 years. And then Albert moved on then to industry and commerce, and he moved on then from that to finance. And he really came into his own when he became Minister for Finance, because
But of course he brought his business acumen with him
Ireland was
into
able to open
politics.
up to the opportunities, and we weren't a third world country anymore. Like when Albert started off, the biggest problem was to try and get running water to every house in Ireland. But look at the standards that have improved here in the last 30 years have just been unbelievable.
They're going to charge everybody for it now.
Well, look at, yes, they're going to charge if the quality water is there. And if quality water is there, people are going to pay a little. And the only problem that I have with that, and as Fianna Fáil has had with that, was that they didn't take into account the ability to pay. And please God, that will come in due course.
But they don't listen to the people. We're going to be hammered with that charge, and that'll be it. When that comes out into law, that's it. I'm sorry, we're not going to go there. But
no,
anyway.
but the ability to pay has got to be taken in by someone. And we were always a party that looked after those who were on the margin and less vulnerable. But getting back to then when Albert became Taoiseach, it was, I would say, one of the greatest occasions that we have ever seen in the Midlands. Now, I had been Director of Elections with Charles Haughey on the road for his 5 general election campaigns. I was directing all the campaigns on the road from, he first stood for in 1981, the 2 in 82, and the 1 in 87, and the 1 in 89. So when Albert was Taoiseach then, he invited me, he asked me to come with him on the road again. And it was a hard, tough campaign in the month of February. And it was just unbelievable. So when that was over anyway, we lost 9 seats as a party. But Albert went to Edinburgh, he got the Edinburgh deal at 8.4 billion, and he went into government with Labour straight away after that. And the challenges that were facing the country at that particular time were probably just the same as they are now, difficult, but the people had got to be put back to work. And that government worked very, very well. And I have my own opinion in relation to why it broke up, because Albert and I went down to fight a by-election in Cork, O'Sullivan's by-election. Fianna Fáil were at 40%, and I think our partners were at about 5%. And of course, Albert went on the news at RT News at 1 o'clock on the Sunday before the election, and said, like, that the government still had over 40% popularity, and within days that government didn't exist, and I thought it was shameful. I thought it was sad for such a brilliant man and a great opportunity. And when he got elected as Taoiseach, getting back to that, he came home to Mullingar. I introduced Henry Abbott, Mary O'Rourke and himself from the stage in Mullingar that day. We had thousands of people on the street, and we were very happy with the reception and everything we got, until we went to Longford. And I was saying, I was around the country with Albert, I was around the country with Charles Haughey, I was on the stage in Cork for Jack Lynch's farewell, for 20,000 people turned up to say goodbye to Jack, a legend in his time. But Longford, I think, had a larger turnout. We were estimating somewhere for 27,000 turned out in Longford. And when Ned Riley took the microphone in Longford and started to address the people, well, you get the goose pimples going up on the back of your neck. It was something really special. And went on to Rooski then the following day, where Albert is his home place, and there were thousands of people turned up there. And I got a telephone call from Larry Kelly, a great former TD from North Cork, to tell me that Albert's great friend Mick Delahunty had just died, and he died during the night. Every hall that the Reynolds opened, Mick Delahunty's band did the official opening, And I whispered to Albert, I said, your great friend Mick Delahunty died suddenly last night. And I got a call the next day to know would I represent Albert. He hadn't appointed as Edicom. And I went down and met the parish priest in Clonmel, and the Tuesday represented the Taoiseach at Mick Delahunty's funeral. So the years then that Albert then worked as Taoiseach, he worked as hard as he could.
He did, and maybe the next thing that he's best known for was his role in the peace process.
Absolutely.
He was a great friend. John Major and himself worked very well together, didn't they?
Yeah, well that all started when John Major became Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK. Albert was Minister for Finance. And we had the presidency of the EU, and Albert came to the finance ministers were meeting in Ashford Castle.
Yeah.
And John Major contacted Albert to know he was only after taking 2 or 3 weeks taking over. He wanted to be guided. And Albert said, are you taking your wife with you? He says, I am. He says, my wife is going down there. And Kathleen Reynolds and Mrs. Major became extremely good friends. I've been to Galway to do the shopping when the ministers were meeting and all of that. And the trust was built on that first meeting in Ashford Castle. And the same when, as John Major said last night, they had to get away from the civil servants for quite a long time at one of the meetings. Had a very heated meeting. That meeting went on for 7 hours. But they were able to have an understanding and a trust of where both governments were going to be going and both nations were going to be going through the respective Taoiseach or Prime Minister. And that was a groundbreaking meeting that really put the confidence to give the IRA for to have that ceasefire. And when Charlie Bird got the notification from RTE and he came into Barry's hotel reception that I owned at that time, and he said to me, can you give me a telephone in a room? And I said, we have room number 4. Molly Davis was there and she gave us a key for room number 4. And Charlie Bird went up and announced to the nation the ceasefire after 24, 25 years. And that was the first really strong indication that the confidence of the IRA that they had in Albert Reynolds as Taoiseach and as a peacemaker. And then on the other hand, Albert, running his entertainment many years before that, had built up a great friendship with a man called Sammy Barr in Ballymena. And Sammy used to take the touring artists off Albert. He had a venue up there, but he was extremely influential and a great friend of Ian Paisley. And that's how the friendship built with Ian Paisley through his contacts with Sammy Barr.
So they built up their friendship, and possibly the trust that John Major and himself built up in each other, it worked through in their politics. But watching tributes to him last night, and the one thing a lot of people paying tribute to him said that he was a very honest man.
Well, he was honest, but just before we finish on that, Charles Haughey and Martin Manser had done quite a lot of work with Sir Father Alex Reid in relation to the peace process. And then Albert continued the great work, and Martin Manser was still held centre stage. And when Albert finished as Taoiseach, Bertie Ahern continued that great work with Martin Manser. So it took 3 Taoiseach in a sense, but Albert was the one that got the ceasefire with the IRA.
Groundbreaking.
And look, that was just incredible, because that showed the world that here is a Taoiseach that has the confidence to stop the bombing, stop the shooting, and there were 3,000 fatalities, as we all know. Like, the younger generation of today may not really realise how difficult it was at that particular time, particularly for the poor people of the north of Ireland. But we in the south of Ireland as well wanted to ensure that we were going to play our part. And Albert, as our Taoiseach, really had done, as Bill Clinton said in an article in a press release yesterday, we owe him, and the world owes him, a profound debt of gratitude for what he did really at that particular time. So
he did change the face of history in Ireland.
He certainly did. And
more than now with the World War I commemorations,
yes,
it's down the line in retrospect that we see how great or what the turn made in history. And we will see that with Albert Reynolds as well.
We certainly will. And I remember driving down O'Connell Street the morning after Bobby Sands died and to see all the black flags. And that brought home to every Irish person, really, the difficulties that our people in the north of Ireland were experiencing. And Albert stopped all that and played a major role with John Hume, with Jerry Adams, and all of those great people, and John Major, of course, and Bill Clinton. They were the ones, the big five really that
Yeah.
that we're fortunate enough to be of the same frame of mind and to build the trust among each other, so that we are the beneficiaries today and future generations.
Yeah, you made a very interesting point there that we didn't realise what life was like for the people down the north. You know, Cavan borders with
Yes.
Fermanagh,
Yes.
and what Cavan town is like 18 miles away from the north. And in the times of the Troubles, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we knew nothing about it really.
No.
Our life was just so different.
Absolutely.
We were just 18 miles away from it, and we weren't under
Yeah.
threat. We lived a free life down here. I know we heard about it in the news and all that, but it was
Yeah.
a different life.
Yeah, well, I was a band leader from 63 to 82, so I'd been playing dances in the north of Ireland before 69.
Not even bands were safe. You know that Fran O'Toole,
Yeah.
and that, like, not even
Yeah.
bands are immune from
Well,
the Troubles.
I can
down
tell you a
there.
very good story about that, because we were playing that night 10 miles the far side of Banbridge, and we came into Banbridge about 2:45 in the morning, 20 to 3, and Jim Farley, the well-known saxophone player, and Roddy Daniels, they were at this massive chipper, and I said to Jim Farley, do you want to come with us to far as Drogheda? No, he says, we're having dinner. So that was a kind of a bit of a put down for the,
Yes,
the
not
Dublin
chips.
people, and we
Uh-huh.
were just there, yeah. So anyway, the next morning there was a strong knock on the window in our house, and it was my father, my late father, out of mercy on him. And he shouted in, is Donie there? And said, my wife said he was. And he says, look, I'll see him around 1 o'clock. I used to get up about 1 o'clock because you wouldn't be home for 5 or 6 o'clock. So when I got up at 1 o'clock, I realised that the Miami massacre was after taking place.
What year was that again?
Now, that was 1975. So we had a red transit van, a white transit van with a red stripe on the side. They had a white transit van with a red stripe on the side. The only difference was they had a custom bumper. They had silver bumpers, and we had the dark ones. We came down the road about 10 minutes. They came next after us, and the massacre happened. The first on the scene after that was Roddy Daniels and Jim Farley's band. And they thought it was us that was after, this was after happening to. And that because the Miami Army didn't pull up in the square in Banbridge coming through, we did. So my father, and then there was no van at our house because what our driver, Eamon Dunn, wanted to bring the van home, do something with it. My father thought we were the ones that
A
were
lot
gone.
of scared people.
So, you know, and yeah, I often
Did you ever
discuss
get
that.
anybody for that massacre?
Well, I believe they did, and they know who did it, and they know
Yeah.
that it was a planned atrocity. So, the Lord have mercy on them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, and
Yeah.
the seeds were sown by Albert Reynolds that has all stopped.
That's
now.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so to get back to speaking of the man,
Yeah.
he obviously, but then when he came out of politics and been an active man, what role did he do then? What way did he turn
Well,
when he left politics?
he was
and he paid. Sorry for butting in on you there, but I saw some of the tributes last night, and then when he made the bid he thought he would be the choice there for president at one stage, but he didn't.
Yeah.
They picked Mary McAleese, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well,
He
you
was
see,
very disappointed then, but he didn't get it. But I watched his speech and his talk afterwards, and he paid thanks, and he thanked his family. He was a great family man.
Yeah,
and he was just getting back to saying it would be great. He would be back. He had a great family, and he would look forward to being with his family.
Yeah. Well, there are two things there. First of all, you see, when he appointed his first cabinet, he left out about 17 different people.
Yes.
So he wasn't going to get those 17 to vote for him. Now,
Politics is a game.
I voted number one for him for the presidency as a dear friend and neighbour with pleasure. And I was loyal to Mary McAleese forever afterwards, and she was an incredible good president. And Martin, her husband, worked very hard in his own way with the people in the north of Ireland, and huge workers in that regard. Naturally, Albert was disappointed he didn't get it. He expected it, and but he'd never held it against anybody. And when his family and all his friends got round and he started to enjoy his retirement, it was just a dream come true. So, dear friend would be dead, I'd give him a call, and we'd head off and we'd go to the funerals, no matter where the funerals were taking place. And dear friend Joe Dolan died suddenly on a St. Stephen's Day.
Yeah.
Albert came down for the wake, he came down to the removal, he led the Guard of Honour on the day of the funeral up the street of Mullingar. And he was that just good friend. Albert Reynolds wasn't a good friend when things were going well. He was a loyal, decent friend. He'd stay up till 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning to try and solve a problem if things were going bad. And I learned one thing from him as a public representative, which I did myself in years afterwards. When he would write out to a constituent and the news wouldn't be positive for something he made representations about, he would say, I have appealed the decision and I will let you know in due course. And then when the appeal would come back, he would say, maybe we can review this in 6 months' time. He always left the door a little open and ajar, and he always left the person with a bit of hope. Now, at that particular time, sure, there was serious unemployment and everything as well. But look, he was the man with a smile on his face. He was the good news man. And if he was your friend, well, you could rest assured he would never be let down.
Okay, and speaking of a smile on his face, you pointed out to us earlier on that one of the best photographs ever taken of him was in the Irish Times today, and perhaps we'll be able to put that up on the screen now.
Yes.
And you can talk us through this. This is when he was Minister for Finance, wasn't it?
This is when he was Minister for Finance, and it was the confident, energetic Albert Reynolds. And I remember one day, around this time, before Fianna Fáil got back into power, the late Gareth Fitzgerald as Taoiseach, well, he got up and he was saying all the good positive things that he was hopefully going to be achieving with his government of the day at the time. And Albert was shadow minister for finance at that time, and he was over on the far benches. And he got up, and I was saying to myself, I was sitting in the visitors' gallery, how is he going to respond to Gareth on this occasion? And all he said across the floor, well, Taoiseach, he says, is that all you have to offer the Irish people? And I just thought it was a one-liner that he was getting himself back into the fray. But at the same time, he was an incredible contributor. He was a great orator. He was a terrific speaker. And he was a terrific motivator. And that's the real Albert, and that's the great friendly face. And I would go so far to say that's probably the best photo he ever took.
Yeah.
And congratulations to the Irish Times for such a beautiful photo. So we can all have this treasure to remember, really, because he was everyone's friend. Like yesterday morning from 7 o'clock until last night at 11 o'clock, the entire day of so many people saying that he touched their families and touched themselves so much, and that he was able to help and assist them. And all the wonderful tributes that were paid to him, quite rightly deserved.
Rightly deserved, as you say. I was watching programmes on him last night, and as you say, I watched him with different eyes now, you know, and I was watching him, a great orator, great speaker, and the one thing I would like to say about him, he was a gentleman in his words and his speech and his actions. He was a gentleman.
But he didn't drink. He had bound his energy. And there was one night that Michael Ahern and myself, the minister for Cork, we said, we'll stay up and see how long this fella stays up. So at about 7:10 in the morning, he shook himself. He said, I think I'll make the breakfast for you boys and you can go home. So, you know, there was a lot of terrific memories. Really, really good.
I must say, Donie, I have to say that you're a great man for the memory yourself. You have got great facts and you have a great memory yourself.
Thank you.
That's Albert Reynolds. But let's talk about youth just briefly, because we're
Can I just say to Kathleen and to Philip and to Ali and the five girls, you know, you're a credit to the nation.
Actually, you can say that, Donie, if you want to say that to the camera there. You can,
okay, well,
if you want to do a piece to camera there, please go ahead.
I would have to say, like, one of the finest families that I have known in Ireland over my time, both in public life and private life, have been Albert and Kathleen Reynolds. Their family have been a credit to both of them, and to all you have done for Ireland, in the words of Bill Clinton. We certainly owe you a debt of gratitude, and we're all the better for having known you, and please God, you will get the strength to carry on with the loss of Albert and the light and glory of heaven to him.
Well, there you go, folks. As I said, a tribute to Albert Reynolds. Thank you very much, Donie, for coming in this evening. And as I said earlier on, watch the man, a gentleman, in his speech, in his word, in his movements and everything. And again, we give our sympathy, convey our sympathy to his family and his friends on the death of a great man, Albert Reynolds. Well, that's it for this week's programme. Again, it's Friday evening and it's the weekend. I'd like to thank my guest in the studio, that was Jim Spears, for coming in and talking about the beef crisis at the moment. And that's it for me. And until this time next week, please do take care and have a good weekend.